Life in a Nutshell. There's a stupid story behind this song, which is that a friend of mine died. And I went to his funeral, and the funeral was kind of uplifting in the sense that the friend of mine had such a joy in life that, everybody was really saying how much he enjoyed life, And I thought to myself, anybody can die at any time, what if I died? I would want people to know that, basically everything was fine. Life in a nutshell for me was great, can't complain. I mean, nothing's ever going to be perfect. So did things turn out the way you expected? Of course not. They never do. But I wanted to write a song that said, don't worry. I had a great time. With a smile in my eye, kind of. That's how you live life.
When I die, remember me with a smile in my eyes. It's been a long, hard ride. Maybe my car caught fire, but nearly everything came out fine.
It turned out to be such a rockin' little song. I love that about it. It's one of my favorites to play, and it's difficult too. In the sense that, I don't know, there's just something difficult about that song to play. It's a tight little rock and pop song that's got some complexity to it. Both Mr. Bonaparte and Life in a Nutshell, which are the two that I wrote, were based on my work with looping. Recently, I started looping where I would play a phrase, loop that phrase, and then play to it. And I can do that live, but it made for a really good way to have two guitar players without Rob actually sitting down with me. Once we worked the songs out, we were able to elaborate on it from there. That's how those things came out musically to begin with. So you got dang, 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 that's a loop, and then I start playing the other things. That's how the song evolved.
How did you get it in your head, Mr. Bonaparte, that everything you did and said would amount to law? And all of the players and pieces on the map you drew should be happy to revolve their lives around you. Living my lonely life. Living my lonely life.
Lyrically, it evolved from the idea that I'm a pretty much of a history buff. I read a lot of books and things. If you saw the library I have upstairs, and I like biography and I like history. So when you read a lot of history, you get a lot of biography. And I had been reading a lot about the life and times of the French Revolution and Napoleon. Just popped into my mind as a subject matter. There you go. Easy song to write, really. There's a lot to be said about Napoleon.
According to the book I read, Mr. Bonaparte, all your plans and proclamations fall apart. And the loyal few who remain intact only seem to pay attention while they laugh behind your back. Closer, keep your
Volcano, I took the title from a book that I just love, called Under the Volcano by Malcolm Lowry. And I've become fascinated by the book as well as the author. The author was a very hardcore alcoholic who didn't really finish very much in his life, in relationships or his work, his literary work. He managed to finish Under the Volcano. It took him a long time. And I've read about his life and just the hardship in it. And I just love the idea of living, you think everything's okay, and then suddenly something that just from nowhere, unexpected happens. And, it could be like, living in Tribeca and 9/11 happens. Something out of nowhere comes and changes everything.
That's as close to an autobiography as I get, being about the days when I lived at 117 Valley Drive in Florence, Kentucky, growing up there with my parents, a teenager, in my first real band called the Denims, and we were, locally known for being able to play all the current stuff by the Beatles. This is in the mid-'60s. We would open the garage door of my basement and or you just sort of play out to the backyard, while we practiced, and people would just come from everywhere. They'd show up, and it was like the whole neighborhood would gather. And they'd sing along with the songs and things, and it was just an amazing kind of almost a spiritual vibe you got out of this, It was in keeping with the times. I mean, that particular time was everybody was swept up with music. Suddenly everybody was letting their hair down and changing their clothing and listening to the radio, and you had all these great bands, especially the Beatles, and that's what the Denims were known for, is pretty good versions of the Beatles stuff. And we were all just kids in high school having fun, and it was great. And I just thought about that and reminisced about that time and how magical that time is in your life if you're lucky enough to have it, as I did.
Well, the boys just cut up and the girls just talk. But when we start up, well, the world would stop. Ooh, yeah.
The people came from everywhere to put their plastic chairs in the summer air down on Valley Drive.
Kids and dogs sat out on the lawn, and they sang along with the hard day's night, the chickens you ride.
I had a great childhood, by the way. I meet so many people who seem to blame their adult life on how bad their childhood was. I actually had a really good one. Maybe I'll have a really bad elderly life.
Maybe she can show me who I am and what I'm for. I'm a caveman. A caveman. Well, I'm a caveman. A caveman. Look out!
Well, caveman is actually I wrote that song a while ago. The Psychodots, which was, it's the Bears without Adrian, did that song a bit. And then we quit doing it, so it wasn't like even an active song that we were playing when we quit playing. It just, kind of came and went. And I always thought that it was a pretty strong, catchy little song, and so one of the days we were, playing songs, I just said, I played it for Adrian, and he said, yeah, I think I can sing that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know that song from before the Bears doing it, but it also is just it's a real pump and rock song, it just moves along. Bump, dump, dum. Tried to guide it in the way of a Kinks song, because I thought of it as that. And I know Bob and all of the Bears are big fans of the Kinks and the early stuff and Ray Davies writing, and I thought it really was that kind of song to me. I saw Bob. I've seen those guys do that song. The last time I saw Bob do it in one of the trios he plays in around town, and I thought in the back of my mind, that's a great song right there. I can hear the Bears doing that song. So, Bob has an amazing catalog of songs, and they don't always speak well through Bob. You have to sort of take them to the next level, put them in front of the band, and then they come to life. I think Caveman is a classic Bob song. I love there's some lines in it, and Bob always has some great lines in the song. I love the song about created my creator and made me look like him. That's classic, wonderful.
I named the constellations, taught myself to swim, created my creator and made me look like him. The shiver and the sigh when she moves.
When She Moves just started off as an idea of how hard it is to. There are some things that can only be appreciated through motion. It's like music is, you can't freeze it. You have to. It has a beginning and an end, and it doesn't really exist. And some things like something a dancer would do, or a martial artist or whatever, they only exist within the motion of it. And so I thought that was an interesting subject for a song. And start off a little motif on that. That was a piano-driven song.
Safe in Hell is another stolen title. I believe it's an Army picture. I'm not really sure. It's a 40s film, I believe. I just saw the title somewhere in a book and went, oh man, I have to turn that into a song. So knowing nothing about the film, I just started, wrote the chorus first, and then ended up probably with the music to all the verses, and then just tried to create this sort of kind of a black comedy scenario. It's not a very serious song. Some people maybe take it more seriously than it is, but it's I read in a review somewhere, a guy called it Serio-comic, and I think he nailed it.
Don't you worry about me, I'm safe in hell. leaving. Well, don't worry about me. I'm safe in hell.
Just a lot of my songs deal with kind of dark subjects, and you know, a lot of it is metaphor. Most of it is metaphor. But I would say that most everybody, if you've lived long enough, or if you just lost someone really close, you think about death as much as you do about life. You know, I mean, it's a natural process for me. It isn't. It's not a morbid kind of thing. To me, it seems. It almost seems like it diffuses the seriousness of dying. You know, to think about on a daily basis, and also just it's great fodder for pop songs, I think.
So don't worry about me. Don't worry about I'm safe in hell. Don't cry for my soul. Don't cry for my soul. I'm leaving. Well, don't worry about me. I'm safe in hell.
Dave is one of those 15-minute songs. You know, it took a lifetime to ferment in my brain, and then it just came out very quickly.
He counted up his fears one day, and they weren't worth a dime. He cried a lot of tears for her, 'cause he wasn't worth her time. And his life felt like a marathon. Man, how long can this last? He slowed down for a little drink and didn't see the winter pass.
Last Saturday morning, we missed the warning, and the pain got boring. It's so sorry.
The song is about a friend of mine that when I was 14 and Dave was 15, he committed suicide. It was a very, as suicides are, there's a certain part I don't know. And Dave, I just told the story, basically. It's never resolved, and in some ways there's some beautiful things about it now. I mean, you know, I'll always see this kid as a 15-year-old, and it's weird as I'm getting old and starting to get gray hairs. You know, Dave's always 15, and Dave's always really smart. He wasn't a really good musician, but he could write and express himself. He was very literary, and it's just funny, you know, the kid that I played with that was always smarter than me, but that was always would let me play with him anyways. And I remember him explaining Catcher in the Rye to me. Just a really sweet kid that got caught up in drugs, you know, long ago. You know, there's nothing new about that. And woke up one morning and hung himself. And we did not. I knew there was trouble with him, but I never had a clue that he was going to do that. He had not attempted suicide before or anything like that. He did it, and he was very effective at it. And it just never resolved anything in me. It led to quite a falling of any sort of faith I ever had at I guess at an important time in my life when I was 14. It made me pretty cynical about the adult world.
Nothing lasts forever, except maybe Jesus Christ. And nothing could be sadder than a child taking his own life.
And I think
I heard
I think when something like when you experience death of someone you really love that is also young like that, it really made me think. Well, life is. There's no rule that says I'm going to be here for a long time, and it made me decide I'm going to do what I want in my life, and what I wanted to do is be a musician, and I knew that my chances of being successful were very small. But I've always felt that way. I might get hit by a bus tomorrow. The volcano might explode. The New Madrid fault might crack here in the Midwest. And it's been a catalyst. But for me, writing Dave was just a really spiritual thing. I immediately called my wife and played it to her, and I played it for another person here, one of the studio managers here, and recorded it. And what's neat about it in the context of the Bears is I recorded a demo of it with a click track, thank God. So it's pretty solid. And that vocal and the guitar, that demo made it to the final take of the Bears version. Dave was a huge King Crimson fan, as I was. And when the Bears, I had to go through that process with the Bears. Do you want to play this one? And they said, oh yeah, and well, cool. So I'm going to play this with a guy that's in King Crimson, a later version. And then we left a spot open for the guitar solo, and we had decided that Adrian would play it a la Robert Fripp, just a long, languid, creamy fuzz melody. But a few weeks after that, Adrian called me and said Robert was staying at his house. And before he finished, I said, "Yeah, ask him." So do you think I should? Yes, ask him to play on it. I knew exactly what it was, and then Robert played on it and just did a gorgeous guitar solo. So with that song, all along, I felt like somebody was watching over us. And it's Dave. He's watching right now, actually. He's saying, "You fool, Fetters." But another thing that was good about Dave is he was one of the first in my peer group that really encouraged me. I was 14, I was just playing along with Eric Clapton and Cream records and stuff, and he said, this is what you should do. And I remember him telling me that. Because a lot of people were saying, this, you can't do this. Study harder and stuff like that. Well, Fear is Never Boring. Just another song I wrote that had some regional commercial legs. I think at the time I wrote Fear, I was I think I was trying to lyrically do something that I had read David Bowie did, which was use the William Burroughs cut-up technique. And I don't know if you can really tell by the lyrics, but I wrote a bunch of lyrics down, and I just took scissors to paper and chopped things up and rearranged lyrics.
Mama's little baby likes fear and torture. Ouch! Mama's little darling likes violent sex. She thinks she's Queen Victoria. Get up, horsey! Ride the Pony Express!
Oh no, trouble now. Are your nerves failing?
Don't come unglued. Leave your house as a stay on your feet. Don't throw that moment away.
No, yeah.
There were a lot of images in the song. That's what I remember about writing it. The music for it came pretty quickly, but the lyrics took a while. And I just tried the Burroughs cut-up technique on that. I don't know, it just, I guess it was a shocking song at the time to some people that we would get away with it. It was a little nervy. It talked about mama's little baby likes violent sex. You know, it describes sadomasochistic yearnings and danger, and I guess it strikes a chord just on it's fun to walk on the edge. And I just always like the idea that fear is like a very bad negative thing, but you know, it beats a blank.
Fear is never born.